welcome to Be Love TV. This is Pastor Willie, and I'm excited to welcome you back to another experience, another episode. You know that we believe in being love, not just showing love or receiving love, but actually embodying love. And when you embody love, you unleash life. And I'm grateful today that we have a wonderful conversation partner, a great guest to be with us today to talk about money. We have Dr. Palma, who is with us. She is a financial guru. She's done significant work with many people I know, helping them reimagine their budgets, reimagine their own financial lives, and really start to move toward financial health. So welcome to Be Love TV. We're happy to have you here.
Thank you. I'm very much happy to be here as well.
Good, good, good. A question I ask all of our guests to start off is, what makes you come alive?
I think the biggest thing that I've always felt is just helping people get to that next level, whatever it is. Obviously the biggest thing for me has always been financial, but through financially, that will also help you get to that next step. So for me to come alive is just allowing and being able to be a part of someone's journey to get them to that next step.
So you've worked in healthcare, you've worked in very corporate spaces, helping these corporations, these institutions have balance sheets, helping them keep money.
Yes.
And now you're moving into a world where you are really working with people on the ground, helping them reimagine their finances. Talk about that kind of evolution of even at a point where you have been majorly successful in the financial industry, in the financial field, and you decided to do something else, to do something that actually leans into your purpose a little more. Talk about not necessarily what you do now, but what that decision making came for you to take that risk, for you to believe that you could actually reimagine your call and live that call with so much power.
Well, I think it was actually back, I would say even in my 20s, I've been in healthcare and finance for 19 years. But back in my 20s, I knew at close to my 40s, I would be in my second career. I wasn't quite sure what that would be, what my second career would be, but I knew I was going to have a second career at some point in time, around that time frame. Sure. Math has always come easy to me. I've always loved math. And I've noticed through different things that I've developed, money tactics was a lot of things that I've brought to this community.
Sure.
I realized that the financial literacy, there needed to be additional assistance, especially in our community. So I think that was one of the driving forces that took me out of the healthcare field, because granted, yes, I was making a great living, but I wasn't fulfilled. And I think I realized that wasn't my purpose. Yeah. So that's what's leading me more towards the financial and really helping people one-on-one.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful part of your story to tell and for us to hear, because that's what being love is, in my opinion. That idea of unleashing life, that never allowing yourself to live under the ceilings of your past greatness, because you always know that there are new ceilings to crack, there are new walls of your own infrastructure of your life that you have to keep erecting. So I think that's powerful, and the way that you are using this next phase of your life as in a real sense, yeah, you'll get paid to do it, but there's a type of love and charity there, because you're doing it for the most vulnerable, doing it for those of us who don't have access to financial literacy resources or financial advisors, which I think is powerful. So we are in the middle of this pandemic, right? And we are seeing on a daily basis a lot of financial insecurities. We're seeing people being thrown into economic limbo, which is creating all types of anxieties. Just recently, the report came out that more than 6 million people have filed for unemployment. There are expectations that unemployment could hit double digits again very, very soon, if our numbers are not already there. And this virus, this pandemic, has not only been a health hazard, a public health hazard, but it's also been an economic hazard. And I know that there are people who are locked in their homes right now, trying to figure out how are they going to continue to use whatever income's coming in, whatever resources they have to sustain themselves. So as we are quarantined, while we're in our homes, is there some financial management 101, financial management ABCs you could help us think through?
So one of the greatest things that I'm glad you brought me here during this time frame is actually April is Financial Literacy Month.
Oh, really? Wow.
Which is very powerful in itself. Not many people realize it, but yes, April is Financial Literacy Month. So one of the things every day this month, I'm doing different posts of just being able to help people, financial literacy, different things like that. So one of the things that I was talking about today was taking inventory. You know, how often do we take inventory of all of our finances, and not just our bank account, but our retirement funds, our life insurance, if we have that. You know, even to the point of looking at what does our car insurance look like.
Sure.
You know, we kind of just normally just sign off on it, and then 5 years later, we're paying for a car full price for insurance when the car's already paid off. You know, looking at wills, or if you don't have a will, creating a will.
Wow.
So some of the great things I think of while we're quarantined and in our homes is taking that financial inventory of everything you have, and not only taking the inventory, but creating a binder and putting it and letting someone else know where all this information is. So that way, you know, if anything would happen, or even that way you have access to it to review on an annual basis as well, so that way you know what's going on in your life. So to me, that's the very first thing I tell everyone. Always take financial inventory. Yes.
Look at what you have here.
Yes.
You know, speaking of that, there are estimations that in addition to the millions of jobs that are going to be lost, there are estimations that upwards of 100,000 people could succumb to COVID-19. The numbers are rising every day. You know, New York and New Jersey are leading the nation right now, and this nation is leading this pandemic in terms of the number of cases. I'm interested. You brought up wills. You brought up life insurance.
Yes.
Can you accent for us how important a will and life insurance are, particularly as it relates to this crisis? What is this crisis teaching us about the value of wills and life insurance?
So let's look at it this way. When you build a house, do you create the house at the roof, or do you create it at the foundation? You create it at a foundation.
Yeah.
So a life insurance and a will, that's your foundation for everything, and you build upon that. So with the life insurance, you're preparing, depending on the type of life insurance that you get, you can use it individually for yourself at a later date. Otherwise, you're preparing it for your loved ones to be able to pay off debt and different things like that, potentially once you're gone. Having a will. Having a will is, again, another security for others. Say, for instance, if you have a retirement account, you're going to have a beneficiary. So that beneficiary, that's not going to be a part of the will, that's separate.
Okay.
So a will is just any other assets that you have that don't have beneficiaries attached to that. So that's what that will would be creating.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. But there's still these practices and these long tenured generational practices of not prioritizing life insurance, not prioritizing a will. You know, in my line of work, I've seen many families who have been utterly devastated at the expenses of death. Death is expensive, right?
Yes.
You know, it's expensive to put someone in the ground, and it's expensive even to go through other processes like cremation. death is expensive, almost as expensive as life is. So I always think it's important that we must keep telling the story about wills, about life insurance as
Yes.
those types of safety nets, because you really don't know their value until you actually need them. Yeah. So I'm interested. So people are at home, people are at work. People are at home, people are not at work, trying to figure out what all of this actually means, particularly as it relates to the stock market, right? We see these numbers go up and down, and the majority of us, our lives aren't directly impacted by how the Dow is doing. It's not directly impacted by what the market is doing, seemingly, because most of us our resources aren't tied up in that type of investment. Does the stock market matter to everyday Americans?
I would definitely say it does, especially the goal would be for everyday Americans, obviously, is to have some type of retirement.
Sure.
So for that instance alone, the stock market's going to be tied to that. So it's going to affect everyone.
Sure.
Whether you have retirement or investments or not, obviously those that are in the stock market, as far as the businesses, the companies that are in the stock market, that will affect us at the end of the day.
Now, do most people have retirement benefits in that way? I'm under the impression that most of, particularly black seniors right now, are living on Social Security more than any other type of retirement benefit, which raises a question for me: is the stock market for everyday Americans? And if it is, and I feel I don't have disposable income, how do I think about becoming a part of that area of the American economy? As someone, let's say in our area, I'm a casino worker, I'm a part of this gig economy. When the casinos close, I'm done. I work, maybe I make $15 an hour. How do I get involved in these investments, whether it is creating additional retirement revenue or just the kind of recreational engagement that some folk get to do that I don't, right? So recently, I bought a few shares of some companies. I bought some shares, not going to tell which companies, but one of those companies is a medical marijuana company that I decided to buy some shares in. How are people who don't have the kind of fixed, decent salaries that middle-class black professionals have, but they're working in casinos, they're working in restaurants, they're working 2 or 3 minimum wage jobs just to get by? How can they start thinking about investing?
So the easiest way for anyone to get into it, which I know by experience, because recently my stepdad has been torturing my life as far as wanting to start to invest, because...
Incredible musician.
Yes. So, because we talk about the stock market, and one of the things I was talking to him about was right now the stock market's on sale.
Right.
It's like going to a department store and going in the clearance section.
Yeah.
Or the sale rack. So the stock market's on sale right now. So he kind of got interested. So he said, well, how do I get involved? So for someone who maybe doesn't have access to a financial advisor, they would be able to, I know there's this one website called Robinhood that a lot of people are going on.
Sure, yeah.
Because with Robinhood, you don't have to have a particular minimum account amount to invest into.
Sure.
So I know a lot of people are using Robinhood.
Right. And some of the assumptions are that to get stock in a company, you have to have thousands of dollars, right? There's some shares, depending on the company, that are available for $5, $3, depending on how volatile the market is at the time. But I mean, even some of the financial institutions like Bank of America or Wells Fargo, you can get share in those companies. You can buy shares in those companies for relatively low amounts, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I think that's another piece that people don't understand, is that you can come in pretty low. And
yes.
I love the way that you said the stock market's wide open right now. It's for sale right now. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, I like that. Now, I wanna shift now because the government is, and I have some suspicions of the government, right? But the government, they're making promises right now that people are getting checks. Some people are expecting $1,200 checks. Some people are expecting different amounts and additional finances connected to how many dependents, how many minor dependents they have, dependents that are minors in their homes. What's happening? I hear it's called the CARES Act, right?
Yes.
As part of this that's the most recent one they passed, right?
Correct.
This next phase of the stimulus package, what should we be expecting at home?
So for individuals, it's anyone who, if you filed already your 2019 tax return, they're looking at that. If you haven't filed, then they're looking at 2018 tax returns.
Okay.
So on that tax return.
So if I didn't file for 19.
They're looking at 18.
And what if I didn't file 19 or 18? There's people out there who didn't file. Come on, man. Why? So right there.
They're looking at 19 or 18.
19 or 18.
I definitely know those two.
Okay, got you.
All right, so based on those, for individual earners, anyone making $75,000 or less, they're looking at $1,200. And then if you have a dependent, it's $500 for each child. And then if it's couples filed jointly, anyone that's 150,000 or under, it's $2,400. Now the limit, there's a ceiling, of course, because the government always has to have a ceiling on something.
Sure.
So for individual earners, if you made over 99,000, then you will not receive that $1,200. And for couples filing jointly, if you made over 198, you will not receive anything.
Obviously, Bernie Sanders didn't write these bills, because if Bernie wrote these bills, everybody be getting the same amount, right?
Correct. And then also, based on some of the, I was looking into a couple different things as well. Unfortunately, if you owe child support, you will not get that stimulus. Or it will be deducted, depending on what you owe. Let me put it that way.
But the money won't go to the child.
The
government just keeps it. Is that what we're to assume? That's some of the weeds we got to dig into.
That's some of the weeds,
I
yes.
can imagine
yes.
that the money.
But I
go
definitely
to the
know,
child,
as far as child support is concerned.
Got you.
Yes, because that's something that the states have to send to federal government.
So the government is cutting checks, and we're expecting these checks when?
Well,
because I've heard some pretty interesting numbers. I've heard by mid-April.
I'm hearing 3 weeks.
I've heard 3 weeks. I heard that some people won't get checks for maybe 20 weeks. That was just on the news today. Some people won't get checks on 20 weeks because they're prioritizing those that have the most depressed incomes first.
Okay.
And everything's a bureaucracy.
Well,
Everything
that's
takes
nice.
a line. Yeah, right. We'll see what actuality is. That's the way they're saying they're rolling things out.
Yes.
But we'll see what the actual rollout is. So should we be hopeful by this stimulus package? Is it enough?
My personal take on this, and this is just my personal take, no.
It's not enough.
No. Based on what we're hearing now, I think, to me, they should be on stimulus point 2.5.0 at this point of time. Because everything just keeps going up. Who knows when we're going to be able to get back into how we were even the beginning of March.
Sure.
So I'm looking to see what CARES Act 2.0 looks like.
Yeah. So now, in the CARES Act, there's some provisions related to some of our monthly expenses, because part of what needs to happen, since some of the income is not coming in, we need the government to think about how to stop some of the money that's going out. Anything in the bill that helps us, like any mortgage relief, any utility relief, anything like that will help us on them, any credit card relief, any student debt relief that will get through this.
So federal student loans, yes.
Okay. Shout out to the millennials.
For the federal student loans, you have to request forbearance.
Okay.
And then your interest, it should actually show zero. And the only reason why I know is because I have student loans. So it should show 0% right now. So you are not accruing any interest on your loans.
Oh, good.
And this will go up until September 30th.
Okay. Wow, that's a pretty significant period of the forbearance. It's a pretty significant period. I think most forbearances are 90 days.
Something,
I
yeah.
think somewhere around there. Yeah. So that's helpful.
Yes.
That's helpful, but we wish it could go further. I know I would love to see something about mortgage relief in this process. I would love to see something around utility and rent relief during this process. You know, currently the government is forcing private businesses to produce medical equipment, which we need, but there also needs to be that effort to force these corporations, these very lucrative corporations, to give the American people a break. And so that CARES Act 2.0, 3.0 that you're talking about, hopefully you can get in the ear of our elected officials, particularly our congressman here and our two U.S. senators, to start thinking through the expansiveness of the relief that the American worker needs. I mean, we pay taxes,
Yes.
we vote,
Yes.
and we continue to be financially and economically abandoned by the people we put in office, which is amazing to me. So this is a question that may or may not be simply connected to the coronavirus pandemic, but why are people so bad with managing money? What is it? What is some of us actually have pathologies around money management, right? You know, it's almost like a sickness. We don't do well with money. Why is that?
It comes down to habits.
Mm.
You know, it comes down to habits. You know, a lot of people that I've spoken to, you know, sometimes spending money is emotional. Sometimes, you know, living so close to the casinos, you just get stuck. Let me just put in this $1, see how it goes. Ooh, I got $5 back. Let me put in that $5, see how that goes. And you just keep, you know, putting money in. So, you know, I think at the end of, well, yes, the emotional piece, and then also when you're raised, you know, thinking about how much did you really learn?
Yeah.
You know, I took algebra, I took geometry, but in school I was never taught financial literacy. That was just something that I just chose to do on my own, just because that's what I loved. I loved finance.
Yeah. That's significant because the concept of the emotions of economics, right? That we don't often think about our emotional, like we have relationships with our finances, and what are the emotions connected to our finances, connected to our money? I think it's a very, very powerful question that you're pushing us to think, is to really reimagine our relationship with money. What does money mean? What are our money autobiographies? Like, when did we learn about money? What did we learn about money from a young age? I think is powerful. But there's also the reality that some of us are really bad at money, is because we actually really don't have enough. That currently the national minimum wage is less than $9, right? Significantly less than $9. The minimum wage in this state is incrementally getting better year by year. I think we're moving to $11 an hour this year, 11 to 12 in New Jersey. So there are also those sort of structural systemic barriers, just a lack of access to resources, and not to mention, which I know you would readily underscore, is the fact that people who look like me, who are descendants of chattel slaves in this country, have 246 years of unpaid labor that we've given to this country, which also sets us back significantly. The numbers are that it would take 228 years if we froze white wealth right now by some cosmic influx into the world. If we froze white wealth today, it would take 228 years for black wealth to catch up with white wealth. Right.
I could see that.
That's
I can see
that's
that.
also a part of
That's
the
sad,
tragedy.
but I could see that.
That's part of the tragedy of our financial illiteracy. That is not just bad habits by individuals, right? But it's also bad habits of systems and structures that have robbed us of that. Listen, last word. You've been a great guest. The Be Love Nation loves you. Love what you've given us today. If you, and this is what I ask again, if you were going to leave the world with a word of hope and advice on how to get through this financially, what would that word be?
Aside from pray, again, just taking each day at a time. We're home. We have plenty of opportunity to reevaluate what our future looks like. What this year, what the rest of this year, what do you want the rest of this year to look like? What do you want the next 5 years to look like? Do you eventually want to, write a book? You have time, you're home. Do you eventually want to create and own a business? That's one of the things that's great about us is we're so imaginative. But I don't think we use it to the best of our abilities. So now's the perfect time. Think outside the box. What do you have, what gifts do you have that you can bring to this world that will blow people's minds? So I think that's what I have to give.
Dr. Palma, I want to thank you for sharing with Be Love TV today. We are richly grateful that you spent the time to give us some of your wisdom, some of your knowledge, and hopefully as we move through this pandemic and beyond, that we will pay more attention to the emotions of our economics, and we'll pay more attention to some of those habits that have caused us to be straitjacketed right now economically. Listen, this has been another episode, another wonderful experience. We thank Dr. Palmer for doing what she does, but I want you to do this. I want you to share. I want you to like. I want you to send this as far as you can, because somebody needs to know how they can reimagine their finances so they can push through this pandemic and come out of this maybe even better financially, at least having a better financial imagination coming out of this than they had going into it. I want you to join us again next week for Be Love TV as we have another guest and another great topic that'll hold us through this. But until then and beyond, be love. Peace.